Welcome to the first book review for the Will Reads YouTube. I am joined here with some guests for tonight, as we talked about before. Then when we do these book reviews, I'm going to have a panel. So before I get into introducing my guests, I want to do a quick recap about how this video will work. So if you're tuning in, tonight we are reviewing Our Final Empire by Mistborn by Brandon Sanderson. This is, if you have not read the book before, the first part will be no spoilers. We'll probably talk for the first, 5-15 minutes about no spoilers at all. And then we will go into a more spoiler topic. In case you haven't read the books, go ahead and click off the video at that point and come back once you've read if you want to get a full book review with spoilers out. So with that being said, let me introduce our guests. So first we have Ipa, all the way from Finland, coming on to be with us tonight. So go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell us about, yourself, what you do, and yeah.
Well, most people who know me probably know me as the Wheel of Time dude. I mean, everybody in this community are Wheel of Time dudes, but you know. But honestly, at this point, I feel like I'm more of a Cosmere fan. Even though I know Wheel of Time better, Cosmere for me is probably the #1 series at this point. So I'm very excited to get to talk about Mistborn. It's one of my favorite books of all time, so glad to be here.
Yeah. Next we have Jake, hailing from America.
Hey, I'm Jake. Yeah, I'm in America. Wheel of Time fan. Just now kind of dipping my toes into the Cosmere water. So I've read Mistborn Era 1 and 2, really enjoying them, and getting really close to jumping into the Stormlight Archive.
Okay. And then we have Tree from Canada.
Yes, what a multicultural group we have here. I'm Tree. I do stuff and things and art and stuff. I actually got into the Cosmere because of Ipa. Because Ipa hosts the quizzes, and I believe the first one that I took part in was Warbreaker, which was really good book. And then I started doing Mistborn after that, and then we did a Mistborn quiz. But I read the first era, and I really enjoy it. And I'm on Oathbringer now.
Okay, cool.
In the Stormlight Archive.
So as I said, we're going to be reviewing the first book of Mistborn Era 1. I guess, and for the non-spoilery part, I just want to hear from you guys, I guess, overall thoughts on things like Brandon Sanderson's writing style, the world building, things like how the characters felt. So, have an open conversation with us. It's not kind of interview where I'm asking a bunch of questions. Just kind of let's talk about it. Obviously, keep the spoilers down to a minimum right now, and we're just talking really about thoughts of the overall, arcing aspects of it. I can start a little bit. Going from a Wheel of Time read to Mistborn, which I think was pretty much, right after I got done with a reread of Wheel of Time, I went right into Mistborn. It was a little bit of just a different feel. Obviously, it's a different type of world. Seems, it's not like giving any spoilers away. It's a dystopian world. And that's in the first page of the first book. So, in case you didn't know that, it's one of these things where everything's kind of falling apart. So, definitely was a little jarring for me jumping in, and was confusing. I had no idea what's going on for quite some time going to the book. But that was just me. So, how about you guys?
Really fun magic system.
Yeah.
Without going into too many details, it's a lot of fun.
It is his kind of a trademark thing, so.
Yeah, I don't want to get too much into the magic system quite yet, but it is a very, very unique magic system and very cool how it works. Yeah. And from what I've found, there's not too many loopholes in it, which is actually pretty cool because it's in a lot of magic systems you can find loopholes and find ways to exploit the magic system. Even with Wheel of Time, there's certain parts of the one power that can be twisted and say, well, if you do this and this and this, you cheat it. And then you have soft magic systems like Harry Potter, where it's just, whatever they need happens. This is a very, very hard, set in stone system. I definitely enjoy that aspect of this. So let's talk about writing style. obviously everyone here had read Wheel of Time probably before Mistborn, being that we're all Wheel of Time fans. And, of course, Brandon Sanderson read the last three, so we actually all had a taste, I guess, if you hadn't read anything else by Brandon Sanderson at that point, a taste of his, at least, writing style, even though he was trying as much as possible to mimic Robert Jordan at the very end. This was his full-on writing style. So let's talk about kind of prose and writing style, what you guys think about it.
Well, the thing that stands out the most for me with Brandon Sanderson's writing is like the pacing of fight scenes and how he just ropes you in and he makes you feel like you're experiencing all of it and you don't lose track of what's happening. Like, it's really easy to keep track while it feels like you're still progressing really quickly. Like, I don't know how to explain it. It's just really good.
Sure.
Yeah, there is... I recently listened through the book again, and there is certain scenes where, in my mind, it's like this huge scene that just takes forever. But it's actually quite short, but it's just so well written that it feels much longer than it actually is. He gets a lot of stuff included in just a few pages if he really wants to.
Mm-hmm.
In that sense, he's very different from Jordan, I would say, because, well, you know.
Yeah.
Jordan has a way of rambling a lot.
Sure.
Yeah, he's really good with being able to put a lot in without being too wordy, even though his books are really long.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think he does that because, like, there's so much buildup. Like, even... I'm going to go into Stormlight.
Sure.
But even reading Stormlight, like... Well, the Sanderlanche, right? Like, there's build-up, and he talks about it, and then all of a sudden, when it is time for that Sanderlanche, you have all the information that you need to just go through it, right? So that's how I think that's how I think he achieves a lot of his pacing, is the before and development, And
I think other thing that you don't really realize unless you actually start rereading these books, but he has this fantastic ability to hide important information.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
that you don't realize it's there until you know what you're looking for. I think Stormlight is the prime example of this, but Mistborn also has a lot of these things in the first book already. A lot of things that are very important in the book tree.
Yeah, I think Jake and I were just talking about this the other day, like the foreshadowing in like the first chapter even. It's really good.
And I guess until you do a reread, sometimes it's hard to see that. One thing that you guys talked about action sequences. I'm going back and looking at. I wrote a whole entire write up right after I finished the first book, and I gave the action sequence 9 out of 10. I love the action sequences. The part that really, at least the first time reading through this, that one thing that was tough to get over was the pacing. I felt like. Until the end, you talk about the Sanderlanche. The end goes crazy of every single one of Brandon Sanderson's books. It builds up. But for me, at least the first time reading, getting to a new system, it just seemed like, at least in the beginning of the book, it just dragged on for so long. And it was so hard to figure out, what's going on? What's the whole point of this? Who are these people and what are they doing and why is all this happening? And there's not much answers. And the world building comes later. So that's something that definitely, to me, was a downside, a disadvantage, at least the first time reading it. I'm sure going through rereads, it'll be a lot more exciting because then I know everything's going on. And I'm like, oh, this is awesome. Now I see all these little things he had put in that I never noticed the first time because I honestly was like, I have no idea what's going on.
That's true. Yeah, it did take it took me a little bit to get into it as well the first time.
It's a lot of fun on a reread.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. They're definitely it's very rereadable.
Sure.
The Final Empire.
I think I've read it 4 times. So
Yeah.
maybe 5.
I'm not
I
surprised.
absolutely love it. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just keep coming back.
Sure. So let's get into the topic of world building and characters. So we didn't talk much about these characters yet, and I don't want to name characters by name quite yet, but at least to me, a lot of the characters were really, really well developed. A lot of them weren't, and they developed over time. Obviously, of course, our main characters are very, very human and very fleshed out, and you get to know their emotions, and especially the main person you're following. I would say the main 2 people, and I will say names in the second half of this. Feel really, really developed, and you get their mental health and their states and why they feel the way they do. And you learn even more about that later on. but some of these other characters you meet just in passing, and it takes a long time to get to know some of them. But As far as character development, I really did enjoy getting to know some of them. Like I said, other ones took me a long time. I came around to liking them and hated them at first, and some characters I never liked. It doesn't matter how long it went. I just didn't like the character.
Yeah, another thing that he does really well is where he gives like every character kind of same treatment, where there can be character who isn't important at all, but he still gives the same kind of treatment in the scenes where they are in, where they could become important later if he so chooses. Of course, not. It can't always happen, but when it does, it has very good basis to build on, and also it leaves you wondering, like, I wonder if this character is gonna come important later, because you don't know based on just how he treats the character in the first scene.
Sure.
Sometimes it could be a little weird or tough to grasp onto a character because of the writing style, because it feels like sometimes it's in a character's head POV versus more of a narrator at different times, and so you're getting what characters feel about other characters, and then you're also getting the face value from the narrator style.
So I guess the final part before we move on to, I guess, spoilers part, that's going to be the more fun part of all this. I believe, one thing, I guess, for each one of you, one thing that you, if someone had never read Mistborn and they're thinking about it, how would you pitch the book to them? Would you say you like it, dislike it? Hey, read it, don't read it. How would you rate the book? What would you tell them without giving anything away?
And I've been trying to convince people to read Mistborn, and I've obviously not been doing a great job of it because I've been unsuccessful so far.
I think you recommended it to me, actually.
Yeah, see, well, I guess that it worked for some person,
So
but
there we go.
well, how did I explain it then? So I can't remember.
I mean, we all have a pretty regular or pretty similar taste in books, so it's just like, hey,
Yeah.
try this. But
Yeah.
not necessarily magic system driven, but it kind of is with good solid characters and a great ending.
I guess, like, my first point would always be that if someone hasn't read Brandon yet, this is a really good starting point. It's fast-paced book. It works as standalone if you are not sure that you want to continue. But if you want to continue, then you already have the established world where to return to with the book 2. So I guess that would be my main way to go about it. Obviously, yeah, magic system and all that is something that, if I know that person likes that kind of stuff, I definitely would mention it. So,
Sure.
yeah.
I was just gonna say, I usually like anytime a book has like a female main character, I'm pretty happy about it, and I'll share that with some of my book reading friends, especially like someone who's so young, and then just their arc and becoming who they become, and the magic system obviously, but the magic system is kind of hard to explain, and to me it didn't really draw me in, like, because I know Ipa had explained it to me at one point when we were talking about Warbreaker and a bunch of different magic systems, a bunch of different books, and I was like, that sounds horrible. Why would I be interested in that? Until I started reading it, and then I was like, okay, I get it. This is really freaking cool.
So how would you guys, overall rate this book? I mean, you can rate it compared to other Brandon works, or just overall what you thought, out of 10, 1 being the worst book you've ever read in your entire life, 10 being the greatest book in the entire world. That everyone has to read it. And I can go first. I mean, I rated it a 7 out of 10.
Yeah, I'd say about a 7.5, 8.
Yeah, that's fair. I was thinking like a 7 or an 8. Like, it's really good, but there's definitely some issues. There's definitely some things they could have added or changed to make it better, like deeper and of a story. So yeah, I'd go 7.5.
Okay.
I mean, to be honest, I'm a person who's pretty bad with this kind of rating system, because I never know, like, I can see flaws, I can see things I really like, so, but I guess like 8, 9, around there.
Okay.
It's not like, on a technical point of view, like perfect book by any means, but on a subjective level, it's one of my favorites. It's such a fast-paced book, so much happens in such a short time. It's just always a joy to go through.
Sure.
And if you don't mind, there's actually one more thing that I would like to mention in the
Sure.
spoiler-free section here, because on the writing style, it's Franklin has this like really simple prose that many people, or at least some people, are not really fans of, and I can understand that. Like, if you like very flowery prose, like, more power to you. But for someone who reads these books in second language, because obviously English is not my first language, but I read these books in English, it's really easy language, or easy writing style to read for someone like me, who is not a native speaker. Obviously, at this point, like, my English is fairly good, but years ago when I started reading his books in English, I wasn't nearly as good with English back then. So
Sure.
he really honestly helped me learn the language in a way.
Cool. Here I think we can just open up to a full conversation. Just talk about things we like, things we don't like, and just let the spoilers flow. I mean, I'll start with characters and things like that. You know, obviously, love Vin, love Kelsier. A little upset that Kelsier left so early in the series. I was hoping it was something like fake, that, you know, that he would come back and that it wasn't real. But no, I mean, kind of comes back, but not really, kind of thing. But, you know, so it's definitely, you know, of all the characters, Vin's the main character, and I've really, really enjoyed following the story of Vin.
Yeah, some of the supporting casts were a lot of fun. When like Breeze and Ham would get together and they'd talk philosophy, and then when one of them, you know, couldn't come up with anything, it was like, off, I'm out of here.
Yeah,
I love Breeze and Ham.
yeah. There's some really good dialogue, especially with Breeze and Ham too. But Breeze definitely adds that bit to it. That's great.
And poor Marsh.
Poor Marsh. Yeah.
Oh, Marsh.
Marsh is probably.
Marsh
yeah.
is.
I'm not going to go past.
That
Yeah,
whole-
I'm not going to go past the
like-
brick one, but yeah. So I mean, like,
Poor Marsh.
overall plot, you know, different things about the book. Like, what do you guys like most about the book? I mean, we talked about the action. You know, what plot lines, what things. I mean, so like, I'll give you one example. Like the prologue, for example, did not hook me. I'll start there. I was really confused about what's going on. And some dude, and they're just sitting there talking, and then flashes to another character, and then we don't even really revisit that until like chapters and chapters and chapters later, when like you finally meet Kelsier and you get like the kind of breadcrumbs of what happened that night, and super confusing.
I want to say in part 3, whenever you meet the other guy, he was in the caves, and Kelsier was like, "We've met, right?"
I think his name is Menace, the guy at the start.
Okay.
Yes,
the old
that's
man.
it.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to say Malice, but I was like, that's not it.
I was like, see, we knew Ipa would know because he's the quiz master.
He is quiz.
I have this right here, so that's why I know.
There you go.
Nice.
I guess just guys talk about like, you know, what things you like most, you know, spoilers wise. Is there particular parts of the book that really stick out to you?
The pewter drag was so intense. When they're running, they did 16, 18 hours full flat sprint.
Just running. Yeah.
It was wild, and then it was intense. Like those moments are really are what get me. It's the like what's gonna happen, and then next chapter.
Yeah, and it really shows you how much they can push themselves just in the first book.
Yes. Yeah.
Sure.
Kelsier's last fight at the in the town square. Yeah. Like when Vin's watching him, and she's like, "Oh, he had me go train with these guys to learn their particular specialty, but I learned, you know, iron and steel, pushing and pulling from Kelsier, and he is the dude."
Oh yeah, it's one of the most satisfying scenes. I feel like the build-up throughout the book to that one moment between Kelsier and the Lord Ruler is just fantastic, and it's just visceral how it ends. You think, this is gonna be the big one. Now shit is really gonna go down. It's like one backhand slap and it's over.
Ugh.
But in a way, it's perfect. Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember I had to read it again the first time I read it because like no, what, no,
I know.
no, no.
And as much as Alan was surprised that Kelsier went out that fast, I was surprised that the Lord Ruler went out that
Sure.
fast. Like, I thought for sure he was going to be the big bad for the whole thing. Like, and we're talking about things that stuck with us in the first book, and mine was all the questions I had at the end that weren't answered.
Yeah.
Like, we built this whole world. We now have no Kelsier. We have no Lord Ruler. We have this mysterious wind mist thing that happened with Vin, and then nothing.
Right.
And so many questions. And that stuck with me more than anything else in the whole book, I would think.
Yeah. Yeah. That definitely did. One of the, I mean, talk about bad guys, you know, one of the things that just in my mental headcanon that freaks me out the most is Steel Inquisitors. That is one of the most terrifying types of bad guy that I think I've ever read about. Like, just the description, you know, with no eyes, with nails, I guess, you know, in each eye, and just, yeah, super freaky looking.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one thing to be eyeless, like Emergil, like from Wheel of Time. It's another thing for,
Yeah.
yeah.
Absolutely. Like, that was something I had to read like 3 times at first too. Because I'm like, these people are alive and like walking around, and they have spikes literally in their eyeballs and coming out the back of their skull. Like, I thought it was just kind of like a thing that somebody was carrying around for a bit or something. Like,
Yeah.
a head on a spike or something like that as like intimidation. It took me a minute to figure out that was a real thing that was happening. Good Halloween costume.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can we talk about for a minute the obligators getting tattooed around their eyeballs
Let's talk about that.
as well? So intense.
Like,
what an intense world that they just put people through.
Yeah. And
Like, they start at the eyelid and then grow, right, as they get more
Yes.
power. That's creepy. I mean, it's not as bad as getting giant nails pushed through your skull, but it's still pretty terrifying.
Also, the politics of both of them, of the Obligators and the
Yes.
Inquisitors.
Mm-hmm.
Like the internal political struggles between their two factions.
Mm-hmm.
I was just thinking how weird it is that, like, the obligators almost feel like webcams or robots or something, because they'll just go and they're like, okay, I heard your deal, I heard your bargain, and then they just move on, and it's just very strange.
Yeah.
And they never explain what they do with that information after. It's almost like they're a hive mind. I know it's not true, but that's how
Sure.
it feels.
And then, you know, the politics as well. I mean, I am a sucker for a good political book, and the politics in Mistborn are a lot of fun. Some of it you drag on a little bit much, not so much in this book. And I won't give anything away from later, but it's just very interesting to see that dynamic and the political positioning and maneuvering of the different houses and families. I mean, even when Vin starts to go to the balls and meets Eland and the Venture, you know, Eland Venture and all of that. Just the politics with the Terrace Man, with Sazed, and that whole culture as well. It just fascinates me. Lots and lots of culture, which is fun.
I absolutely loved Vin's transition into Valette, and also her realization that it's just another mask. Like, this isn't who I am, but also who I thought I was isn't who I am. Like, who I am is consistently growing with every new life experience and thing that I learn. And her going to the parties was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I loved that too.
Yeah.
I kind of was thinking this time through, is like, so is it just a bunch of teenagers and early 20-somethings, or is this
I
like,
think so.
is this just like prom every weekend for these kids?
Yeah, that's what it seems like. Like, maybe the
Or-
oldest is like 25 or...
Yeah, or are there actual like adults there? 'Cause I remember at the very last one, Ellen was sitting with his family, or with his dad, and so his dad was there.
But it was his parents' house.
That is true.
So I don't know if everyone's families come or not.
Or if the parties were just so huge that it was kind of, since it was from Vin's point of view, it was just mostly kind of her age group and those kids.
Yeah.
I think the point of the parties is just to, like, match up for probably marriages or just political friendships. And
Mm-hmm.
so.
Yeah,
Sorry,
I mean,
Alan.
so one other thing that I wanted to talk about as well. So we mentioned in the spoiler-free part about the magic system. So obviously, now that we're spoilery, it's the allomancy. At least that's the magic system that gets introduced in book one. But so
Little bit
mostly just the
stuff.
allomancy is what you see in this book, and the different, at least the 8 original, metals that they burn to do different things. And then, of course, a Mistborn can use all of them. But if you weren't a Mistborn, to take them out, what is the most your favorite, I guess, power, and what is your least favorite power, or your most useless one?
Oh, that's tough. I'm like trying to think like if I could pick anyone, which one would I want? I'm like pewter sounds awesome.
Yeah,
Probably pewter, honestly.
Pewter's awesome, but also the ability to fly around by pushing on. What do they push on? What is it? Is it steel?
It's just little coins. It's whatever metal, but
Oh,
they
it is
burn.
whatever metal.
Yeah,
And that's just a Mistborn
no,
thing?
that's if you burn steel. So if you're a
yeah,
coin
they
shot,
burn steel, but they can push on.
but you can't really fly unless you're a Mistborn because you can only push, you can't pull.
Yeah.
So you would just push up really high and then fall
Yeah,
down and
okay.
hurt yourself really bad.
Yeah,
That's true.
So the idea,
yeah.
So that would be really, really fun to do as well.
yeah. Then you got 10 eyes. 10
Yeah.
is they can see or enhances all their senses.
10 eyes. Yeah.
Pewter, of course, gives you strength.
All their
Yeah.
senses. Yeah.
Yeah.
Zinc riots emotions. Brass soothes. Copper hides allomancy, and bronze reveals allomancy. So, and then we're not getting into ATM and all the other ones because, I mean, yeah.
No. Yeah, I'd probably pick pewter because, like, pewter sounds like the best one because you can heal, you can go
Yeah.
fast without getting hurt.
Pewter's
and
good until you run out.
break stuff and yeah, that's true. But just don't ever run out.
But pewter burns pretty fast.
Yeah.
That's true. Dang
Yeah.
it. There's always,
There's always
a catch.
Yeah. But
Um,
10 burns really slow. 10 is like the slowest burning.
Yeah.
one.
Yeah, but would you really want to be that sensitive to the surroundings all the time? Like, it's useful for if you're
It's
in
not-
hideout.
What? Hang on a second. It's what's not in the way. It's what's not in the way.
I love Spook. I'm just gonna say Spook is my favorite character of all of them.
Spook is great.
It's not about focusing on what you want to see. It's about not focusing on everything
Yeah.
else.
I feel steel is such an obvious answer because it's flashy. It's such a multi-use thing to have. Also, it's very easy way to kill yourself by accident. But I feel it would still be really fun. Like we live in a world covered in metal at this point, so
Sure.
you could fly around like Spider-Man if you wanted. It would be really fun.
Yeah.
Obviously, Peter would be kind of safe choice as long as again you don't run out. But I guess I would still pick steel. Although I would probably kill myself by accident at some point, but
Yeah.
it would be fun while it lasts.
Worth it.
Worth it, yeah. Okay, so you can do the flying around thing with steel then.
I mean, yeah, you can fly around with just steel. It's just more
Okay.
difficult.
Well, then I'm gonna
Okay.
pick steel too then, because now that we have clarification, that's the
Yeah,
one
that
I'm
is
going
true.
with.
I was gonna say I'm gonna pick brass just because of Breeze.
Yeah.
What about the steel pushing the highway to go from town to town?
Yes, that's what I'm thinking. That's so
That was
cool.
that was
Like,
pretty
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, you don't really need iron for that at all. You just keep pushing and hope that there's something that can stop you.
And we all saw X-Men. We know that there's metal everywhere because Magneto just, they have to put him in a glass box to keep him from doing anything bad. So yeah, I mean, as far as the least, what's the least, desirable metal to be?
Like, I would say that bronze and copper are, at least in real world, they would be pretty much useless because if you're the only one having the power, those wouldn't
Right.
give you any
Yeah.
help.
Yeah.
Especially Copper Cloud is like, I mean, it's nice to have, but do you want to be the guy who holds up the Copper Cloud? Probably not.
Good point.
yeah, I would agree. I wouldn't want to be copper. person.
Yeah.
But if I was in a group, I might want to be copper person because I would be like the least looked at person, and nobody could tell that I could use allomancy, right?
But then if they
So
found out, you'd be the first
But
one
if I had a
they'd
choice,
kill.
I'd pick steel.
You would be necessary for a thieves'
Yes.
hideout.
Yeah.
So anything else from these books that you guys want to talk about, or anything that kind of comes to mind? I mean,
There in the prologue, there's mention of myths rates impersonating humans in the prologue.
oh wow,
I didn't catch that.
Oh yeah, I caught it this last time
okay,
through, and that's
yeah,
cool.
That is very cool.
I did pick a few things regarding the Khandra throughout this read. In chapter 5, it was a Kelsier point of view, and he mentions Orsur's contract, and that's just he says
It's in
Orsur's
passing.
contract. Yeah,
Yeah,
very,
or
very
sure, right
passing.
there.
A couple others, but nothing major. Like Lord Venture makes a reference to the Khandra using, or just to a Khandra using this, or pretending to be the survivor by using his bones from when he was killed at the pits of Hatsin. So the survivor that's around town during the meat of the story isn't really him, it's a Khandra. Or at least that's what Straff Venture thinks. It's a chapter 19 reference.
Well, I mean, we kind of touched on this a little bit already, but we talked about how Ham and Freeze have this really nice dynamic going on. But I feel it's like the whole group, Kelsior's like thieving group, where it's not that many scenes where we see them together, but there is this like feel of warmth and friendship every time we see them like just banter with each other in Glaub's shop. Like it's just in couple scenes, Brando manages to write friends, which is very underrated ability, I feel, because there is so many books that I have read where people are supposed to be friends, but they don't really feel friends. There's the main character, and then there is the supporting cast.
Yeah.
But here they really feel like friends, and those who have read Stormlight have seen another great example of how Brando manages to do this. So that is something I really like, because Freeze, Ham, Dogs, they're not that important in the first book, but you really like them in the first book already.
I think what helps that is you're seeing it from Vin's perspective, and she's like, "What is this?" And you're like, "They're friends, dude." Like, oh, you've never actually had friends. You don't know what this camaraderie is like, and as she gets, I know, as she gets more familiar with the group, she becomes, they become family to her, and it's beautiful.
yeah. So one thing I did want to do is I wanted to actually read 2 snippets from reviews for when the book first came out and kind of get your thoughts on these reviews, because I got a -1 and a +1. Obviously, I'll start the -1 because that's actually the more fun one to pick apart than the positive review. But the Washington Post, when it first came out in review, said Sanderson's characters aren't particularly well developed. The allomancy sometimes feels just like a video game. Press XYXX to burn steel. So that was kind of I just found it kind of interesting this review. But he goes on to say, but he has created a fascinating world and one that deserves a sequel. So it's kind of a double-sided review. But like I mentioned, some of the characters are not really well developed. I mean, you think about when Min's first group she's with. They're very flat characters. Whatever I can't remember. What's the name of the guy that is the head of the thief? Cayman. Yeah, he's just an asshole. But like, there's
so bad at names.
Yeah, I'm horrible with names too. Cayman's just and there's not much development to him as far as like anything. Why he would be this way. I mean, besides the fact that they're bad. Everyone in this community is bad people, and that's kind of what Vince's point of view is that no one's trusted. Everyone's bad.
Yeah.
Everyone's out for their own, and everyone's just trying to just get one over on everybody. But you don't develop into really the psychology of that.
Like, it kind of ties into the last point though, with her finding her new
Mhm.
friends and her new thieving crew. It's she never had that before. All she had was people kicking her down. Can't go to sleep fully for fear of being raped by one of the men in the group.
Mhm.
Yeah, she she goes off on the crew about them not being nobles
Right.
or lords. She's like, you're not a Scot. Right. You've never been a Scot. You're Scot don't sit around and drink wine by the
Mhm.
bottle. Like, we're you've never feared for your life. You've never thought about slitting your mate's throat for a crust of bread.
Mhm.
Um, so I think it kind of pays off later when you find out a little bit more about what she's gone through. That's all she's known
Sure.
is shit
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
And I think that's what that crew was written to be, is just garbage
Yeah.
people.
Yeah, and like even when we start meeting clubs and docs and Breeze and all them, like I didn't trust them because Vin didn't trust them. It took her a really long time to warm up to everybody, and I felt that through Brandon's writing.
Yeah.
So it took me a while to trust anybody, probably until the second book. I would say I still thought, well, you know what? I'm not even going to get into it because
I trusted Sazed from the day
Next
one.
one.
Sazed, I trust 100% all the time.
yeah, Sazed I trusted. Yeah,
In my head, I see him as Kingsley Shacklebolt from the Harry Potter
Okay.
movies, just because of like the robes and the hat that the dude wears. Yeah,
that's so good. That's another amazing arc.
Mm-hmm.
Another great arc.
Yeah.
Um,
So what did you guys think about the whole entire Ellen Venture first meeting him? I mean, that's a major, at least part. It's just major in this book. There's a strange, I guess, courtship. I mean, and it's meant to be, but he's a strange guy.
yeah.
I got wannabe bad boy vibes from him at first. Like, not really a
Yeah.
bad boy, but I'm pretending to be a bad boy for the sake of my
Sure.
reputation.
Mm-hmm. Actually, when I first read about Ellen, I thought that Ellen was going to turn out to be a Mistborn as well.
Mm.
And I had like, there was like little clues in the setting
Mm-hmm.
that made me think that. But like, when Vin walks up the stairs to the area, like to the balcony or whatever, the floor was all covered in like mist symbols, and I thought there was little things that were leading us to like we were meeting another noble Mistborn.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I thought Ellen was going to play out when I first met him, and I didn't trust him. I thought he was going to be a bad guy.
Sure.
I wish there had been like one more scene between them two before the whole Critic Shaw rage, because, and like I'm fine with like if books don't have the greatest like romances, like
Yeah.
I've read Wheel of Time, so you know, but I feel like there should have been like one more scene where they like properly get to know each other a little bit before Vin suddenly is gone for a couple months.
Yeah.
And then it would have been more natural that when they meet again afterwards, Ellen would just sit on her table and spend night or evening there. And honestly, this is probably the biggest flaw I can think of in the whole book. So, as I said, I really like the book
Sure.
and I think it's very well written. But that's something that I wish there had been.
I did like that though. I like their back and forth. I like the book, like him playing with the, not playing with the book, but sitting down at her table and just reading the book. Like I loved that scene, and she's like, "What are you doing?" "I'm reading. Mind your own business." Like you sat at my table. It was just
Yeah.
really cute.
You know, one of my least favorite, I guess, plot lines are just disappointments. That's the best way to put it. One of my biggest disappointments was the whole 11th metal thing. That just when it didn't pan out at all. It just seemed like they talked about it way too much for what it was. A nothing burger. It was just like, okay, seemed,
Yeah.
I think it was meant to be more of a not necessarily a red herring, but red herring esque.
He was trying to give people something to believe in.
Mm-hmm.
Like that was his
Yeah,
main
sure.
thing. That's why anytime, like obviously he has had a relationship with Sazed for a long time, and Sazed talks about religions all the time. So Kelsier was trying to build that in however way that he could, and I think his plan was to use this metal to give people hope until he finally realized that's not going to work, and then he ended up doing what he did. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't want to go to spoilers to the other books, but I'm just gonna say that even this little thing here that after book 1 seems to be just kind of abandoned and forgotten, ends up having more payoff later.
Sure.
Well, one thing that I noticed on my recent reread, which was kind of funny, was that up to this point, whenever I have read this book, I have felt like, oh yeah, Vin, my fellow young person. I hope she does well. Mm-hmm. Suddenly it's like, oh, Vin, that young person, younger than I am person, something weird has happened there. I don't know, maybe she has gotten younger since I last read the book, but that was a weird thing to notice, that she's suddenly a child in my eyes.
You've gotten older, bud.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Say that.
Yeah, she's just a little baby.
Yep. 16,
Yeah,
right?
she is.
I think so.
Yeah, 16 or 17.
16, I think, at the beginning, but yeah.
She mentioned at some point that she has had a birthday that she didn't even think about until, I think, Sage brings it up or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, she's like, my birthday
I mean,
was
the book
last
takes
week.
about a year from start to finish.
How wild was it that halfway through the book, their whole plan went to shit with the army?
Well, I mean, that's to be expected in lots of books. Something's going to go horribly wrong.
Yeah, but the whole plan, and
I know.
everybody's so downtrodden, and then they're just winging it from there. It's good.
Yeah,
It's good.
I think that's when Kelsier changed his mind about his whole game plan with the 11th medal and switched to the murder thing.
Suicide.
Yeah, pretty much.
Murder by murder.
Suicide for the greater good, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, it was he didn't even know, that was a big risk that he would have that payoff.
Right. But yeah, no, so it's I mean, final thoughts. I mean, I love the ending. I think it wraps up really, really well. It's a satisfying ending. Obviously, it does still leave you wanting more, but it's definitely a lot of fun.
Yeah. Yeah, and those things that Robert Jordan was really good at, writing a whole entire series with foreshadowing for the last book in the first book, has followed through with Mistborn, at least. I'm not that far into Stormlight, but Mistborn has followed through all the way through the series. There is spoilers in the very first chapter for the last book.
Yeah, he's a master of foreshadowing. People say Jordan is that, but Brandon learned from the best when it comes to that. Again, Stormlight is the better example, but Mistborn also has that. And I'm pretty sure at least not everybody here has read Secret History, but oh my god, the things that happened there. And then you look back to the first book and you're like, oh, wow.
Nice.
Awesome.
So any final thoughts or anything
right.
else?
Just read it, okay? Just read it, everybody. It's so good. Just read it.
You can join the Will Reads Discord. We have a whole section for Cosmere. But thank you guys so much for spending a little time on Saturday night.